Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Reiki Zen. I hope you're all well. Today's video we're going to discuss something a little bit different. It's still down a spiritual pathway, and it's about how we can work on ourselves, work on our energy, and work on where we are and how we can develop ourselves. But today's video is going to be the subject of shadow work and the ego. This is a video I've been wanting to make for quite some time, and it can get deep and it can get tricky for a lot of people, because things will be triggered, things will fire up, and that's because of the balance between your ego and your shadows and what shadows may remain. We all have shadows. We all will continue to have shadow. However, it's about understanding why the shadow is there, what is creating the reaction, or what is making you react in a certain way because of various things that you've put behind your ego. Your ego basically is you as a human. As a person, we all have egos, and it's part of our human life to have an ego. And it's about how we balance life between the ego and the shadow. A lot of people will think, oh, ego is when you're just kind of like full of yourself and you're up your own ass and you just think you're this, that and the other. Well, it is that, but there's lots more to the ego as well. The ego is every part of your the way you behave, the way you are. You could be egotistical, but your ego is everything, and the way that you function, and the way that you operate, the way that you explain yourself, the way that you speak to people, the way that you react with the outside world. Every aspect of that is with ego. And when you start working and coming into your present space, your present time, and being in your presence, you then become more aware of your ego, how you express yourself, what you're feeling at the time. So then you're very aware of how you're putting messages across and how you're interacting with other people. And yeah, it's a bit of a tiptoe line really, but it's just being aware of it and knowing what you can do to work towards it, to improve yourself, and to better your relationship with your shadow. So what is your shadow? So we've explained what the ego is slightly, but your shadow is everything that your ego doesn't want you to know about you. And that's why it's kind of, if you think of yourself there, that's you. I know it's a hand, but that's you standing in your world, and this is the path going across here, and you're stood, the sun's shining, and you've got a shadow here, which is obviously being created by your physical form. And this is what your ego does to anything that it doesn't think it needs, or anything that you might react in a certain way, it puts it behind you. So obviously that's where it becomes your shadow, because you've put it behind you and you thought, oh well, that's that, yada yada yada. You go further on through life and you start going down a healing journey or a healing path, or you just want to be more aware of yourself and better yourself, and maybe go down other avenues of even like a psychological approach to things, because psychology and spirituality have a lot of interconnecting things within them. So your ego is just like you in that place and just putting all this stuff behind you. And I've made a list of things in front of me that I'm going to eventually work through. So your ego puts it behind you and makes you think that, that was that, it's over. But it will, some things that you put behind you will make you act and behave in certain ways. And also other things that you put behind you and you don't deal with can repeat themselves throughout your life. And until you come to understand why you've got this repetition, why you're still stuck in the job, why you've still got a domineering partner, why you're still in abusive relationships, why you're still doing loops and not focused and not grounded and not settled in any situation within life, a lot of this can be taken back to your ego. To your shadow, which your ego is hiding. And you need to, shadow work can be, it can't be, it is, shadow work is hard, it is tough. And a lot of people, because you're looking at yourself and you're looking at your shadow and you're looking at everything that makes you react in certain ways, the majority of people don't want to look at that. Their ego is saying, I don't need to look at that, I don't want to look at that, that's happened, I've got on with my life, I'm here where I am, this is just the way things are, this is just life, I can't control any of this, and that's all ego talking. Whereas in actual fact, when you come to look at things that have happened from early childhood all the way leading up to where you are now, you will find that a lot of things that you do put behind you have created the person that you are today. So it's a lot of deep layer healing stuff going on, and it's been talked about by so many people across various spiritual platforms and videos, and Aaron Doherty and Victor Otto and loads of other people that are in this field of spirituality and development videos and finding ways of helping you to level up your energy and move into your next your next flow within your life. So that's kind of like what this video is going to be about. It's going to be about your shadow, it's going to be about your ego, and how we can healthily work with the two and put them into context of what they are, why they are, and come to some understanding within ourselves of the reason that they're there. So I've made a bit of a list of different things. I did put down number 3 for this, but I'm going to bring number 3 to number 1 because I think it's probably one of the most important points, really, and it's about how worthy or how much worth do you feel you really have. And I'm not talking about the worth of financial, I'm talking about you as a person. How much worth on the whole do you feel you have within yourself? So there'll be a lot of people out there who'll be thinking, oh, I'm brilliant. I can't do no wrong. I'm really good at this, I'm really good at that, I'm good at everything. And again, that's like your ego, it's kind of pushing stuff back. But when you start looking deeper, and these people, if they get to a point when they do start looking deeper, they'll be actually, I don't like the way I am with that, and I don't think I'm really worth that, because I'm not really so good. So it's really trying to understand this fine line between being so cocksure of yourself and understanding the various levels of where this all comes from as well. So how worthy do I believe I am is your first question to yourself. So if you're living an apple pie life and you've got a family, you've got kids, you've got your own home, you're very stable, you're very settled, everything is going well in life, there's no issues within your life, then within your self-worth, you would probably think that, yeah, I'm pretty good. I feel worthy of what I have, what I've achieved within myself. But then on the other hand, there'll be those people that will be like, well, I'm in a really bad place. I'm not able to do this. I haven't had a job for so many years. I just can't find any security. I haven't got any stability whatsoever. So I don't feel very worthy at all. So with people like that, they've got a lot of shadow to look at. Because they have so much going on, but they will have a lot of good that's going on within them as well. And usually because of the way the mind works and the ego works, it tends to focus more on the negativity than the positivity. So taking little nuggets of positivity out of these scenarios will help make things seem a lot better. So your self-worth really, really is paramount, and if you don't have any sort of element of self-care routine, if you don't look after yourself, if you don't eat healthy, if you don't meditate, if you don't take time for yourself, and you're always doing things for other people and just spreading yourself really thin, then you have very little self-worth for yourself as well, because you're not giving yourself that time that you need for you. So there's many different aspects of self-worth, but it's about your own sense of being, your own self-care. And if you think of yourself enough, you will be able to set your boundaries and say, well, no, this is my time, this is my space. I've done what I can for these people, but now I need to have my time for me. And that is understanding your self-worth, because if you wear yourself thin and wear yourself out and you don't have time for yourself and then you don't have time for anybody else, you're just going to go into some sort of spiraling whirlpool of depression or despair or some sort of trauma. So I feel that one is probably number one to go to about your self-worth. So it's worth just thinking about that one and just putting your life into context and actually writing things down, journaling. Journal things down. This is every aspect that I'm going to go through today. It'll be a great exercise for you to journal, to use your journaling books. If you haven't got one, get one. And just write down, say this is the first subject, how worthy do I believe I am? And write that across the top of the page. And then on your left side column, write your pros, everything that's positive within your life, everything that you think has light and makes you feel good and makes you feel happy and keeps you in a stable place. And on the right side, write everything that you feel is negative, and then put them into some sort of correlation and context and look at the balance between the two. And then you can start sort of pinpointing areas of your negative list and start moving them over into your positive list and working on these elements. And that's about working on your shadow. So whatever is making you feel bad or whatever is creating a negative outcome or feeling or emotion or whatever, that is your shadow that is showing itself, and you need to work with that and rectify it and just try to put it into some sort of alignment. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be a pro, but as long as it comes out of the negative column, because while it's in the negative column, your ego again is working overtime and firing on that and keeping on making you feel less self-worth within yourself. So that was number one, self-worth. Number two, which was number one, is what are my weaknesses, and any of these weaknesses that I have, could they have potential? Could they have a positive outcome from them? So whatever weaknesses you may feel that you have, and a lot of weaknesses you will find as you get older are stemmed from emotion and from trauma from youth, and you carry them through life, and they sort of flare up every now and again. And I was never very good at sports when I was at school, when I was young, so that's kind of affected me all the way through life until sort of the last few years, where I'm just thinking, well, in actual fact, it's not really that important that I was never really very good at sports. And I got to a point where I started using the gym regularly, and I got in really, really good shape. And yeah, I've put a little bit of weight on now, but to be honest with you, I'm in a really good, stable place. I'm positive, and I try to take the positive out of everything. Even when the world and the matrix tries to work against your ego and create a negative outcome, it's about trying to be positive about it, and just again, it's about flipping that switch and looking for potential. So I mean, we all have weaknesses. Everybody has weaknesses. And it's looking at them weaknesses and seeing how they can be used in an alternative way to become positive. One of my weaknesses when I used to be a manager was I was never really I was a manager, but I was never really one of those managers that were just like, well, I'm just going to manage and you do everything else. I was sort of a people manager, so I would work alongside them, and I would help them, and I would train them, and I would be next to them, so if anybody needed any assistance, I would be there. Whereas I was always like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that because you're not managing them. Well, I am managing them because I'm working alongside them, and I'm being with them and observing them. And if I do the same as them, and they see me working in that respect, if I'm going to give somebody a job or ask them to do something, that if I wouldn't do it myself, then I would never ask them to do it. But because I did every aspect of it, then people in that respect work better for me. So that's where you take it as a positive. So, okay, I wasn't manager type person because I didn't want to fit the criteria of just being someone that just stood and watched and managed. But being the person that worked alongside people and helped them and trained them and coached them, and was the person that they went to for when they had troubles and issues, then that becomes a positive, because now they are happier to work for me and work alongside me rather than somebody else, because I understand them and I would never ask them to do anything more than what I would do myself. And that's the difference. So that's where you can flip it around and make it into a positive. So that's the way you need to think about this, about weaknesses. And so really, when you look at it in that respect, it wasn't a weakness, it was a pro, because I had the backing of people behind me that would do whatever they needed to do, and whatever I asked them to do, they did it without any question, because if I had to do it, I'd do it as well without question. And it's about bringing people together, and that's not just within management, that's within the world. It's about bringing people together and connecting, harmony, love, peace, compassion, joy, and finding that togetherness, that oneness that we all have. Number 2, what makes me feel truly happy? So then with this, obviously, happiness, what makes people feel, what makes you feel truly happy? Is it being outdoors in nature? Is it being in the gym? Is it being with your family? Is it being with your loved ones, partners, wife, husband? Is it being with your animals? Is it being with your pets? Is it being alone? Does that make you feel happy? I love being alone. I love my alone time, and just being with the dogs. But I also like my time with my partner as well. So it's understanding these things that make us truly happy and incorporating more of that within our life as part of your working on your self-worth. Incorporating more happiness within your life creates more self-worth and improves your life, improves the way that you look at yourself, which then starts to change your thinking and change the way your ego is thinking. Because as soon as you start flipping these switches and turning things around, your ego becomes a bit like, oh, what's going on here? I don't really know how to deal with this. So then you're having to sort of retrain your brain or rewire your brain into a different level of thinking, which over so many days, I think it's Joe Dispenza, I think his name is. He's got like a rewire your brain meditation, and you follow it for, I think it's 21 days. So I think if you do something for 21 days continuously, it's about rewiring the way you think, the way you operate, the way your ego operates. So waking up every morning doing this meditation sets your mind into that place of being for the rest of that day, and then you do it the next day, and you do it continuously. And even after 21 days, keep doing it, because it keeps you in that place, because it's very, very easy for the world today and the matrix and so much negativity to easily slip back in and start turning things off. And it's just about switching it all around the other way and looking at things from a different aspect and looking at what makes you truly happy. And once you are truly happy, your vibration changes, everything changes within your life, because you start attracting more happiness. Number 4, if I could chat to myself from 10 or more years ago, what would I say? So that's an interesting one. And that's even happened to me a few times, where I've seen old posts that I've put on social media from 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I was still struggling with mental health, and before I was on this sort of awakening journey, this path of spirituality. I was really quite negative, very negative, and I would say, if I could chat to myself back then, I would say, you don't need to put all that shit on Facebook. You really don't, because it makes all those people think of something else about you. And you're putting that message out to the world about who you are, but in actual fact, it's something that you're having to deal with personally, and they don't really need to know that. You need to deal with that yourself. That's down to you. It's down to the individual to discover their healing path and work on these elements within their life to better themselves, to create their self-worth, to increase their happiness, to look at their weaknesses and turning them around and making them into positives and pros rather than negatives. So if you could chat to yourself from 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, what would you say to yourself? What kind of life were you living? Was it? It might still be a happy life. It might have been a happy life. You might not have had any issues, but there might have been things going on in the background which you weren't aware of, which was making you feel a little bit out of whack. So then now you look back at that and you realize things have cropped up where you think, oh, actually, I did that because of that, and because I felt like that because of this situation. So it's hindsight and looking back at things like that is, even though we try and remain present and live in the present moment, sometimes looking at the past and digging some of this shadow stuff up will help pole vault you further into your spiritual progression, into your spiritual journey. Because when you're hanging on to a lot of this stuff, you will find that you just keep going round in circles. And until you start unpacking these things and looking at them from an outer perspective and understanding them deeper, this circle of things will just continue. And once you've done all the work and the inner work and the shadow work, and you may be doing meditation, you may be going to see a Reiki therapist or a shamanic healer, or you may be doing yoga or looking into different things within your life to increase your energy and focus on that from within, then you'll start to vibe, you'll start to lift, and you'll start to attract. And because then you're now putting the messages out to the universe, your frequency is changing, everything else around you will start to change. Number 5, why do I have issues with trust? So do we have issues with trust? I mistrust authority figures usually. And that's usually because of situations that I've been in where, because of the way I was as a person and maybe my management style, and they didn't agree with the way I worked, that a lot of things were pulled from under my feet, and that made me react and change, and had to change for the situation. Whereas now, I'm very kind of just like neutral with them. They're there for a purpose, they're there for what they need to do, but it's very neutral for me. Yeah. I used to have serious relationship issues with trust years ago. I don't anymore, but many years ago, I had issues with that, issues with jealousy. But yeah, not anymore. That's all, and that's part of the healing journey and the understanding of yourself, the understanding of where your life is, the understanding of your ego and your shadow, and what creates the reactions, the feelings, the emotions, and this deep-centered healing that we do and what we're going through as we awaken, as we ascend, as we go through all these different processes. It releases a lot of this stuff, unbeknownst to a lot of people, but sometimes you will experience events that will try to trigger those feelings, and that's the universe just testing to see how you're coping on your journey, see how you're doing. Has he dealt with that trust issue yet? Has he dealt with that envy issue? Has he dealt with that jealousy issue yet? Let's just give him a test. We'll just put something out there and see if it works or if it doesn't work. Yeah, so the universe is a really good teacher with things like that. So if you have trust issues, why do you have the trust issues? What's created the trust issues, and is it from youth? Is it from school? Is it from teachers? I found as well a lot of my childhood at school, a lot of people that would call themselves friends weren't really friends as such. They were kind of like fair weather friends, and that went on for quite some time until I discovered that, and I just said in my head, I see who you are, I see what you are. And as soon as I'd said things like that and just put it out there, all those people moved away because the messages from the universe shifted them. My frequency had changed, and I no longer needed those people in my life. And if they had remained there, and if they were still there now, I would just have to say bye-bye, because they have no connection with where I am now. None whatsoever. But I thank them and I give them gratitude for being there when they were, because some of them did help me through some hard times. But as soon as the hard times came and went, and I wasn't really bothered about the good times anymore, I was more bothered about myself and my own healing path and my development, I saw them for who they were, and off they went. That's fine. That's totally fine, and it's okay to let people go. Don't be afraid, because again, that's the ego. The ego is telling you to be afraid. Oh, you're going to be alone. Oh, what will you do? How will you behave? How will you react? How will you do whatever in life without those people around you? But you adapt. You awaken, you change, you heal, you find new tribes, new people. And that's all about the healing journey, the understanding, the learning, the correlation between your ego and your shadow and how they operate, and having a healthy understanding of the two, of how they work together. Is the way I am now is how I will live the rest of my days. How do I feel? So this goes back a little bit to the self-worth bit. You know, how do you feel within yourself? What is your level of self-worth? And if you have very little self-worth, is that how you see yourself for the rest of your life? Are you going to make a change? Are you going to look at that, expose it for what it is, whatever it may be in your life, and say, no, I'm better than this. I am worth so much more. Put that vibration out there that you are worth so much more and you can achieve so much more. Look at your positives in your lists, look at your negatives, focus on your positives, vibe with your positives, and move your negatives into your positive column, and know that where you are now, if it is a negative place, that isn't where you will be for the rest of your days. You can do so much more. You are worth so much more. And if you have a very settled life and you're very happy with things, then, you know, how do you feel about that as well? Are you happy with that? But don't let the ego, like, oh yeah, I'm amazing, I'm brilliant, I've got a brilliant life, it's perfect. Because again, the universe can test. If you put that out there, the universe can test you and just see, okay, let's just see how perfect you are and how perfect your life is, and it will give you a quick, sharp kick up the bum with multiple situations that can come into the fray. So just be careful with that. what situations have shaped my personality? So again, this is going back to like kind of youth, going back to your childhood, going back to any negative situations. So again, going back to myself, when I was at school and wasn't really the most sportiest of people. I was always a little bit overweight, and has that shaped my personality? Well, yeah, it did. That's what made me the person I was. It made me the person that made me feel I was just always the chubby kid, and I couldn't do this and I couldn't achieve that. But then eventually when I bit the bullet and I started going to the gym and I was training regularly, I was working out and I was doing martial arts training 3 times a week, and I was actually, I'm pretty damn good at this. And there's the ego talking. But yeah, I got pretty good at it and I enjoyed it, and it changed my life, and it made me, especially the martial arts, it made me understand things a lot more, especially on a physical and energetic level. So yeah, little things like that from your youth can actually shape your future, shape who you are. So if you don't address it and look at it and expose it and say, I see you for what you are, and then do something about it, then it can just, again, you can create this loop and this replay, and it will just keep going on for the rest of your life until you expose it and see it for what it is. Because then if you are going through these loops and not understanding a way of getting out, that goes back to the last question, which was, the way I am now is how I will be for the rest of my days. How do I feel? And that will make you feel unsure, maybe a bit depressed, maybe a bit sad, maybe, oh, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd tried that, I wish I'd looked into that a bit more. Yeah, interesting. Are there any, the last point that I've written down, is there any things from childhood that makes you angry or sad, and why? Because sometimes we can carry that on through, again, from a childhood, because when you're young, you're impressionable, you're very impressionable, you take a lot of things on board psychologically because your brain is like a sponge, and as you grow up, you become a little bit more, I suppose, a bit harder, a bit tougher to kind of crack and break down. But when you do have these insecurities from childhood, they can come into your adult life, which can help, which can make things seem a lot worse than what they really are, and they can trigger you and make you angry, make you sad, make you react in situations which really don't really need any reaction to. The situation is just as it is, and it's the shadow, it's the ego and the shadow working together to create a worse situation than what it already is, because it's bringing up this stuff from the past to make it feel a lot worse and making you react in many different ways, which can be negative, make you judge, make you criticize, blame is a big thing, jealousy, all these different things are all powerful things, but just things we can look at within the shadow, within the realms of shadow and ego, and how the two counterbalance each other, and how when we start to expose little bits of our shadow within the shadow work, that you will start to feel a release. But do it bit by bit. When you're looking at elements of your past and your childhood, and just look at one element, something that makes you react or makes you trigger or makes you feel a certain emotion, even though there's nothing really to connect to it in that there and then. You just think, well, why has that made me feel like that? what's it bringing through from some aspect of my shadow, and just deal with it individually, bit by bit, because as you release things, you will feel it. You will feel it within your energy, and you may feel stuff, jealousy and anything. You may feel in your heart. You may feel in your solar plexus. You might start getting, acid reflux. You may start getting a bit palpitations. The energy will operate on so many different levels within your body as you start to release things. So you just need to take it slow, take it step by step, and just work on it gradually. But journaling is a really, really good technique and a really, really good way of dealing with your pros, your cons, things to work on within yourself, and just creating that more positive vibe, not having an ego about it, and just being in a present state of understanding of yourself, where you are, becoming the best version of yourself, where you can be happy, and really look into your self-care and development. So that's today's video. I've only really scraped the surface of shadow and ego work. It really is quite vast, but I hope it gives you an idea of what we can work with within shadow, within ego, and how the two sort of work alongside each other, and how the ego can sometimes push things behind us and make us think it's not important, or in actual fact, if you leave that there and don't expose it, in time to come, it can make you react in strange and uncertain ways, and it can hinder your healing as well. Let me know what you think of this video. Do comment below. If you've liked it, if you've enjoyed it, then obviously like, share, subscribe. If you want me to go into this any further, because it is quite a vast and it is quite a deep subject, and it can go on for quite some time. Shadow work it's a lifetime of healing. It really is, and so is your ego work. Both are a lifetime of understanding and of healing, and we're all going through it. We're all dealing with it, and as you start to awaken and you start to ascend, a lot of things will fire up. You will experience a lot of past stuff. It will just come into the forefront, into your mind. You might see it, you might experience it, you might feel it. They might exposed as memories, and all this stuff, as you start to awaken and ascend, is being released bit by bit, because when you start to vibrate on a higher frequency, a lot of it doesn't really need to be there anymore. It's just being exposed, released, moved on, because you're shifting through the various levels of a frequency and vibration as you ascend higher. But yeah, until the next time, much love to you all. Namaste, take care of yourselves, and bye for now.